Confession time. I have been trying to finish this quilt for, I'd say, 5 years. This is the year I finish it. I'm so excited because I've loved this quilt for so long. It's the Boo quilt, and it's so cute for Halloween and the fall. And you can see I've got quite a number of blocks done over the years, and then I just keep adding them to the pile. It's like every Halloween I get inspired, but the Halloween season seems to be too short for me to actually totally finish. But this year I've got you guys with me, and I need the external accountability. So if you are looking for the pattern, it's this one right here. It's from the pattern basket, and we can either put a full kit together for you, or you can just grab the pattern. The actual quilt calls for 16 fat quarters, and then a bunch of black, white for the eyes and the nose, in both white and black, and then 4.5 yards of, I'm using white on white, but you can use anything, but we'll include it in your kit. Otherwise, you could just grab a bundle. But I love doing it in these, look at how beautiful the ghosts are in these sort of beautiful, soft, non-scary, cute Halloween, non-scary, but non-Halloween fabrics, but definitely in the cute colorway for Halloween. So I know some of you already have a kit and already have the pattern. I'm not going to go through every single step of making it. I'm going to go through some of the things that are going to help you make it, and that's going to make life easier. And then we're going to put together a block, and then we're going to assemble some rows. So I'm just going to hang this up because I've got one row done. Can you see it if I hang it here? I got one row done, and it's so cute. I gotta finish. I can do it. You can help me. I'll help you. You help me. Okay, so I'm going to set my blocks aside. And the first thing I'm going to do is point out that this is a fiddly little pattern with a lot of little pieces. So the way I organized it, it could be Ziploc bags, but I just did envelopes because I had a ton of them. And there is a long list that you need to cut out for this pattern. And you use them in all of the different blocks in all of the different colors. So my advice would be to layer up your fat quarters in as many, as high as many as you can cut with your rotary cutter. So like 2, 4, 6. If you can cut 8, be careful you're not squishing it and not getting a solid cut. But if you can layer some up, that would be good. And then just go one by one through the cutting. But just take note that you need 1 A square. However, you actually need 16 ghosts. So you really need 16 A's. So just be aware that the cutting instructions are for 1 ghost. And when you're layering things up, you're going to want to cut all of it out at once, probably not one at a time, or else you'll be like me 5 years later, still cutting out ghosts and needing your at-home audience to hold you accountable. So that's my tip. The other thing is to really keep the squares organized. So all of the colors, for example, when you get to cutting E, you can see they're layered up, and every single ghost is a different one of those colors. I'm going to put them in their designated envelope. And you could reuse these, just scratch off E and for another quilting project. And then I'm keeping them in alphabetical order because as we go through the instructions, which are, quite a few pages, and there's lots of little steps. Once we go through the instructions, it's calling on G, 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 H, H, H. You want to be able to put your hand right to the piece that you want and not confuse it with another piece. So this method is something that I have found super helpful when I'm putting together any of the pattern basket quilts. I just also wanted to point out that if you're not into the ghosts, I got to show you a couple of the other ones that are that we've got for fall, and they're all on sale right now, by the way. They're all the fall stuff, and Halloween is an extra 10% off. Anyway, look at the owls. I mean, so cute. So maybe this, you can leave out a little bit longer or bring in a little bit sooner. The fall leaves, also gorgeous, not quite as fiddly. So that's beautiful. The pumpkins are a classic. And then pumpkin table runner. So if you didn't have it in you to do the whole quilt. And then this one too is so beautiful. I love the idea of quilts that you can just pull out every year at the same time. And I swear next year I am pulling this out finished. I will not be doing this next year. It's getting done. So let's get going. I'm going to show you, I'm not going to put the entire block together. I'm going to show you part of it. I'm going to show you some of the tougher parts because a lot of it's pretty straightforward. Like it goes together in rows like this. So we're going to finish the lower half of the body together here. But I do want to point out a couple of places where you need to do some drawing onto your squares, especially if you don't have a laser. And it's right off the top. She tells you right away that you're going to want to, and this is a little different for many people. So you might not have encountered this before. So this is why I want to point this out. So of the GG and the HH, these are actually the same size squares. It's just that the line on the, and so I just want to make it really clear because the line on the GG and the HH, the only difference is that the line goes from one direction into the other. So be careful you don't pull your exact same size little square and then get it down here and then go to draw your line and just go, oh, I'm just going to do all of them all at once because that's going to save time. And then all of a sudden you don't have half of them going the right direction. The other thing I want to point out is that the pattern wants you to come down a wee bit. Well, it's come down an inch, I think is what it said. An inch from the top left. So if you're lining your ruler up, to make sure you've got an inch going down, and then that's where you're drawing your first line. Right here. So I kind of drew that line first. I'll do it a little bit darker so you can see. So you want to have 1 inch showing. And then you're drawing the diagonal line from the 1 inch mark and down. Oftentimes we're drawing, when we have to draw on lines or we're using our laser, we're going from here to here. In this case, we are an inch up and we're drawing that diagonal line within that inch. And that's where we're actually going to be sewing. And that's the part we're going to basically pick up at. You can see I've got one on here, and we're making the little bottom ridges of the ghost tail. And you can see why it needs to go one way and the other way. So I want to point that out as a potential where people could have a hiccup. And then so I don't want to lose these. I'm putting them back in my alphabetical order here. I feel very organized at the moment. Then the other place you're drawing a line, which is a little uncommon in this, in quilting anyway, you encounter things like this every once in a while, but if you're new to it, you might be looking at this going, how, why would she do this to us? But this is how you get the cute little sides of the ghost, is to start sewing a wee bit down and then adding a little square off here. You know, the only other way to achieve some of these cool shapes, right, is through paper piecing. And I really love that the pattern basket allows you to do some of these cool shapes without paper piecing. So I just want to point out in this case, when you've got your J rectangles, like these boxes here, that you're going from here to 1 1/4 over. So when you're lining up your ruler, you're going to make just a wee mark. Sorry, from this side. So I'm just measuring over 1 1/4. You're going to mark it there, and then you're going to go from the top down. And then there's a little bit of, when you're getting a little bit deeper into the pattern, when you get there, you're going to lay your your J squares on top of the DD squares like this. Just like this, and then you're going to sew down here and then fold it over on the slant and then trim it up here. That's what's going to allow you to get, and you're going to do it for both sides, one on each side, and that's going to allow you. So this is going to fold down. You're going to trim here the way you would like a half square triangle, but it's going to give you that little extra slice, and then you'll have another GG or HH square to put on the bottom to get that angle. So that's another place I wanted to call out because that could be a little confusing if you've never done drawing, but not from point to point, like a little further down into your block. But don't worry, you can do it. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of highlighting and knowing like, oh, okay. And now all of a sudden our skills are elevated and we're making all kinds of shapes. So that's great. Now we're getting better at things. So I'm going to jump ahead to, because as you can see in the pattern here, all of this kind of piecing was fairly straightforward. We've got a little bit of slant work here, but it's pretty straightforward when you see it in the instructions. But you'll notice each line, like here, 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 and here, that's what I've got going right now. I still need to attach this and this, and I still need the arms and the middle. So that's where I'm going to pick up finishing. So you're going to want to finish this, and then finish this before you start assembling it all together, because then you can kind of assemble it in your rows. So next up for me is to finish block 7 and to use those little squares that I was telling you about where the lines are going both directions. I think it's GG and HH. They're going in both directions so that we can make the little ridges of the ghost body, like these little parts right here. So I know you may be watching going, hey, I thought you were going to teach us how to make this whole thing. I know if you've done a class with me before, you know how to do some of this with just those call outs. So go ahead and dive in. Otherwise, we will be here for hours and hours and hours. And this is more of an inspiration, help you get over the hump and inspire you to get your ghost quilt finished, or maybe you want to make one yourself. And it's getting me to do it also. So, all right, here's where we're at. All right, I've got one. And now I need to finish the other side of this one. So I've already got those lines on there. So if I'm, when you're operating a piece that, you know, you're not sewing from top right to the bottom, I'm just going to start sewing like I normally would right across that line. And I should have one more of these somewhere. Oh no, 3, 1, 2, yeah, one more. Oh, great. Come on, Jen. It's probably just sitting here. I will look. Maybe pause for a second. Well, just look. 1 second. Okay, I think I got it. Hold on. Okay, there we go. So I've got my little piece, and then I'm taking the one side of my GG, the side that starts with the higher line on the left coming down in, and I'm just going to sew directly on that line. And you can do it for all of them at once. And you can decide if you want to make all of your ghosts at once, or if you would rather go ghost by ghost. I would definitely, for this pattern, definitely do at least one ghost to start till you get the hang of all the little details. And then you can go ahead and double up and do multiples at once, or even all of them at once. But getting one down first is really going to help you understand the pattern. Once you understand it, it's quite a bit easier to continue following it. Even just reading it through all the way first is helpful. But making a full ghost first is also really helpful. Okay, so once you've got your line drawn, you'll see what I mean about taking the diagonal here, because this isn't a typical, like, we're cutting off quite a weird bit, you know what I mean? But that's what's going to happen. Just like with a regular half square triangle or a flying geese, we're going to cut off a 1/4 inch away from the stitches, okay? And then we're going to press just like this. And then it needs to get trimmed. So we want to make sure that we're staying nice and straight. You can press this on your pressing mat first, or you can give it a finger press. Probably best to actually press it. So I've got my little portable pressing mat here and my portable iron. And I will press this as we go. I like this little iron because it has steam too for little pieces. Now, you could cut this with scissors, but we don't really advocate scissor cutting in quilting. So I'll line it up and trim. And I'm using the lines on my mat to help me out a little bit here so that we stay nice and straight. So this is 1 1/4. So I've got 1 1/4 lined up here. And 2 1/2. And then we've got one side of the little ghost bottom. I wonder what it's really called. All right, so I'm going to do that with this one too. This is how it's going to end up when it's already on the other side. When it's overlapped, it sort of looks a little like a flying geese unit, but different. You'll notice with quilting, like it's a lot of the same techniques in different ways you use over and over. So this pattern really is going to up your experience, because I know you're skilled enough to do it. It's just going to up your experience because now you'll have had a chance to do a few different things that you probably haven't encountered before, which is great. It's going to make you a better quilter, better sewer. Okay. Hello. Pause. 1 second. We got someone at the door. Okay. A skid of sewing machines just arrived for some very lucky people who just ordered new machines. So we just stopped what we were doing and now we're back to it. So here we go. I'm still trimming right here to make this back into a 1 3/4 inch rectangle by 2 1/2. There we go. Good. And I'll press this one down. So you can see how doing these one at a time, not so efficient. Not so efficient. Calcium. Things that don't happen with the big reliable iron. Okay, trim. Okay, and 2 1/2. Okay, and now I just have one more I need to put. See, I'm all in like different stages here. That's so inefficient. But I'll just do this side and then I'll have all 3. I'm just using my regular presser foot here, which is about to jam because what have I done? This came unthreaded. Thank you very much. Can't just be easy when we're live. Okay, rethread. You always hear something that's going to go wrong before you see it. So even though I wanted to keep sewing and ignore that I heard that. All right, so I do have a little tangle here. I'm going to just take that off. Oh, it's right in the cutter. So I'm going to be just a little careful and pick this out. There's a loop that I can see that I can cut. And now, just don't go yanking, you know? Ooh, I really did a job. Sometimes I'm using Deco Bob, which is the thinner thread. And sometimes with Deco Bob, I have found, as much as I love it, it's so thin that sometimes the thread cutter catches too much or it doesn't catch at all. Because it does its job, but anyway, so here we go. We're back in business. Just a little untangle and rethread. Not all is lost. Usually things can be fixed by just rethreading. When you're using your needle threader, remember, needle down, needle up so that it's in the right position, and down, down again, slowly lift up. Okay? That's the mantra. Here, I'll do it again. Into the threader. Sometimes it's tough with the lighter thread. Down, down again, slowly lift up. And then you'll have a loop in the back that you can just pull. Okay. I should do a little test and make sure that, do I have a seam ripper here? Of course not, because I always think things will go fine and then they don't, and, you know. So do I have a little scrap? Yes. I'll test on the little scrap. Huh, sounds good. You always know based on the sound if things are working or not. And so then I can bring my other piece over. And that just acts as a nice little leader. I also have my straight stitch needle plate installed on my machine here. And that's great for a project like this because there's so many tiny little pieces. I'll show you. If you're coming up here with a tiny little triangle, the straight stitch needle plate, when I had that little jam, I might have pushed all of that fabric down in there, but the straight stitch needle plate prevents that from happening. And since we know we're only sewing straight in this project, using the straight stitch needle plate is perfect. That way, if you get a little jam like I just did, it was just with the thread and the whole little corner or pointier piece of the fabric didn't end up in there too. So yeah, straight stitch needle plate when you're piecing is always a good idea. Maybe your machine doesn't come with the HP plate, which is automatically straight stitch, but it might, like this one, I'm sewing on the Janome 6650. It comes with a straight stitch needle plate, so why not use it? Okay, trim. And you do need to do these one side at a time, even if you were doing multiples, because those two pieces need to overlap for you to get that look. All right, so we've got all three now, the bottom of our little ghost. And we just need to put this little row together. Because if we're putting together our whole ghost like this, and then we've got his little arms, I think it's a her. Arms, right? This arm, why does this arm look, oh, this arm looked bigger because that's not an arm. Here and here, here, here. Okay. Now, don't sweat it. These don't actually attach together. We're going to make a row here, and a row here. So in order for me to finish my middle row, I need to sew these right sides together. And you can do a little nesting here, even though it's not a traditional nest. You can make sure that your points are lined up by just peeling back what you're working on. See, peel it back, peel it forward or put it forward, and make sure those two lines are touching. And you could put a little pin in it so that they don't move as you sew straight across. Now, for this, I do need my 1/4 inch foot. I'm just going to grab it. Okay, I'm just going to install my 1/4 inch foot and just sew a 1/4 inch. It just was a little off on the, I started a little far in. So there we go. So we can open it up. So then those points are meeting exactly where they need to. And then the next one, same thing. Right sides together, peel it back. And a 1/4 inch. Why are you unthreading on me today? I'm just rethreading here. And I'm going to sew that 1/4 inch again because it was a little off. Okay. There we go. I'm going to give this a press. The arrows show to press it all towards the right, so I'll listen. Okay. So now we can kind of, I'm going to trim a few of my little strays there. Dropped it. Could this fabric with the damask be any cuter on this ghost? So cute. And then a little spider web bow. Funny. All right. So what we're going to do is essentially create 3 rows that we can start to put together. So I just need a couple of BB strips. because that's what the pattern says. I'm telling you, this envelope method is the way to go, you guys. Envelopes or something, clips, Ziploc bags, something that helps you keep all these little pieces organized. So now I need 2 of these pieces right along the head. And then this is how we create this row here. And then we've got a second opposite row. Make sure you can see here, here, and here. So I'm going to go right sides together. No, Jen. I'm going to go right sides together like this, and like this, and a 1/4 inch. And I'll just chain piece the other one. Open it up. I don't need to press quite yet. You only need to press a seam that's going to get sewn over. So I can still chain piece these like this, and then press everything all at once. Okay, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. My plan is to quilt this quilt using glow-in-the-dark thread. If you go to homemade.ca and you're interested in glow-in-the-dark thread, we've got some on there from Wonderfill. It's glorious. And you can already imagine how cool it's going to look to have like glow-in-the-dark ghosts or glow-in-the-dark details on this quilt. You know, maybe I could quilt in Boo or a couple of like fun things like right on the quilt in the glow-in-the-dark thread. I know the kids are going to love that. And maybe I'll leave it a surprise that it's glow-in-the-dark thread because you can get it in white, pink, green. There's a bunch of colors. And that way I can kind of say, hey, hold on, turn out the lights. All right, I'm going to press it up and then I'm going to press it down. That's what the pattern is saying. And the other side. Whoops. Don't wreck what you've already done. All right, I'll just set that aside. And now let's do our middle row. Again, it's just right sides together. I think this looks more, yeah, sure. And 1/4 inch. Just making sure I'm nice and even the whole way. Try not to let your seams flip up. And open it up. Oh, it's so cute. These are like the prettiest versions of like the Pac-Man ghosts. I used to play Miss Pac-Man a lot. The bows are really reminding me of that. I loved Miss Pac-Man so much. Anyone else play Miss Pac-Man? Or even regular Pac-Man? I had like a little Miss Pac-Man game I got for Christmas. And no one better touch that. My sisters, I love that game. And this is taking me right back. I guess you could do something if you, let's say you didn't have these kind of fall colors and you wanted to make it all a ghost quilt out of just solid, like primary colors. It would look very much like Miss Pac-Man. Okay. We are going up, ironing up from the bottom. And this is going to be important because we're nesting the seams now. So they're telling us what to do to get the nest. So we'll follow it down and up. Okay, I could not be more excited. This is coming together. And there it is. Look. Aw. Okay, right sides together. And let's do a little nesting here. So we've got this seam that can nest together. And you can put a little pin. And a 1/4 inch. It's funny because I really did start this so many years ago, and I was looking at some of my ghosts, and you know, my sewing's come a long way. Some of those seams aren't nested quite like they should be. But you know what? They're still perfectly good. And if yours aren't nested quite like they should be, it's okay. In 5 years from now, your quilts will look very different too. It's all about improving as you go. So even as I look at my own, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And at the time, I thought I was doing great, and I was. It's fine. I just didn't finish it, but here we are. Okay. Press to that side. I'll just finger press it for now while I line this one up. I'm going to nest that seam. And if you're not sure what nesting is, basically what it means is this one folds this way and this seam folds that way, and I'm butting the two together so that those points line perfectly up. And it's going to seem like it is a cohesive piece because of how well it's lined up. And sometimes in quilting you hear of like perfect points, like these ones at the bottom too. We could put a pin here so that those bottom ones are also lining up. Okay, don't run over your pins. Take a minute to just make sure everything's nice and lined up. And you don't need to go full tilt. Sometimes our machines that have speed control, it's just as good to go slower with the speed control as it is to go faster. Oftentimes we're more accurate if we can just stay at a nice medium speed. Okay, now we are pressing out towards the sides. Oh, hi, little buddy. Okay, it couldn't be cuter. Are you more, let me know in the comments, are you more of a cute Halloween or scary Halloween? I think you can guess what I am. So you can see I've got a few little points here from yesteryear that I did that don't quite line up. I'm dealing with cutting that I did from years ago. That's fine. The finished block should measure, I think it says, what does it say? 10.5 by 12.5, I think. So I'll get that measured up and make sure that we're in good shape before we start attaching it to the rest of its counterparts. So what kind of beefs this quilt up a little bit, the ghosts, is that there's some sashing that goes in between all of the ghosts. So if I take you over to the assembly page here, you'll see how one line of ghosts that they kind of, one's kind of down a little bit more, this one's up. That's because there's a piece of sashing that starts off this line and ends on this line. That way the ghosts, the rows are the same, but the ghosts are staggered. So we've got a 3 by 10 inch piece of sashing that will be on this row here. And this one is going to start, like if this was the top of our first ghost here, we're going to put a 1.5 by 10.5 inch piece in between, right in between each ghost. So I thought I had set them somewhere. I think they're over at this. Okay, I think I got them. Here they are. So we've got a little bit of what's called sashing that'll go underneath, and that just provides like a little bit of buffer. You can see between the ghosts like here. So we can go right sides together. And now if you don't have room to trim, or your, sewing like mine of yesteryear is a little off, this is where you can make up some room in your seam allowance. Just by perhaps making your seam allowance a little less than a 1/4 inch in some spots. You'll notice I'm sewing with my seams, the one with the most seams up. That way I can make sure that they're not getting flipped over accidentally on the other side. I can protect the points. So I see the points going by and making sure I'm not sewing over too far to the left so that the points are preserved. There we go. And now I can pick another one and put it right underneath. All right, right sides together on that bit of sashing. And again, if I need to make up some bad sewing in my seam allowance, this is where I'll do it. Perfect, or done is better than perfect. Get all my stuff out of the way here. Oh, it's coming along. And I'm going to wait and press this at the end. All right, and get another bit of sashing. And right along the bottom. When you're using white on white, make sure that the whitest part is facing up. It's easy to flip it and have sort of the more shadowy version because they look so similar. There we go. And we'll choose another one. White. Traditional ghosty color. To be young again. Okay, so there's 4 ghosts in one row. So one more. Oh my gosh, this is so cute. Look at this one. Look, I mean, one's just cuter than the next, honestly. Okay. Right sides together. If you are inspired to make the boo quilt, the ghost with the bows, I'll put a link in the comments, and you can either grab a pattern or grab a full kit that has the whole bundle in it. And, you know, you might not finish it before Halloween this year, but it's the kind of thing you can pull out and work on over 5 years, trust me. No, it's the kind of thing you can pull out even if you just wanted to make a table runner with one row, and you could put them side by side this way instead, or just a little wall hanging or a pillow. I just think it's so cute to be able to pull out something like this time of year and have one of those sort of little treasures that your kids or grandkids always go, oh, I love that quilt. Oh, I love seeing that when it finally comes out. It's the same with that Christmas, you know. This would also be really so cute on the front of a Halloween treat bag. And then that way it gets used every single year. Doesn't always have to be a full quilt, you know, you could just make one block and use it for something else. All right, so in following the pattern on our last ghost here, we want to go ahead and put that thicker piece that's going to allow this row to be staggered from the row next to it. So right sides together now on the larger piece. And I think this side is the right side. So hard, white on white, so hard. Okay. Gosh, I really sucked as a sewer when I'm looking at some of these seams. I'm really making up in my seam allowance here for some of these old ghosts. Okay. So cute. Now, there is a long piece that needs to go in between. So I need to press these middles so that I can add that bit of sashing that goes on this side before I sew it together. And if I'm looking at the piece, is there ironing instructions? I guess it really doesn't matter because we're not nesting anything. So I'm just going to go with it the way that it's naturally falling. Some of these seams are pretty questionable, you guys. Do you ever pull out works in progress and go, huh, like look at this one, for example. It's just sewn like squeezing in that seam allowance. Yeah, that's got like 2017 written all over it. This pattern's been out a while, but I see it every year and it's a classic. Okay. So now I'm going to take the big long piece that goes in between. And now I remember cutting this, this I cut years ago, but there's no seam in it. So I cut it with the yardage because it's 53 inches and with the fabric is only 42 or 44 with 4 inches. So that's another cutting thing to keep in mind. So right sides together. Just remembering that this side here doesn't have that extra sashing at the top. There is a bigger border that goes around the whole thing. And you can put some pins in here if you're more comfortable keeping everything lined up. I'm just going to go for it. But I am going to stop every so often and make sure I'm lined up. The borders or like the sashing is also a good place to make up some seam allowance if things aren't quite lined up. Okay. I'm going to grab one that's already this one has tape because it was hanging in the shop downstairs. Finally finding its home in the quilt, and so you can see that we're starting so that they stagger. That extra bit is going to allow this ghost to be a little staggered from its buddy. Okay, right sides together. So if you're making this quilt this year, I hope you've joined the Homemade with Jennifer Tryon Facebook group. I'd love to see all the little pictures of your ghosts and how they look in their fall colors or whatever colors you decide to do it in. If you need the pattern, just visit homemade.ca under shop. You could just type in boo and it would come up, or Halloween and it would probably come up. But I'll leave a link in the comments too if you are looking for either the pattern or the whole fabric kit to put this together. I know many of you have purchased this pattern from me in years past, and maybe you're sitting on it, and I hope this is the inspiration you need to get yours done. It's been the inspiration I need to get it done once and for all. So what I'm going to do is finish sewing these 2 rows together, and then I'm going to go ahead with the rest of the ghost blocks. And what I'll do is I'll meet you back here for another live, and that will be when I actually do the quilting. And let me hear in the comments, would you rather see me long arm this, or would you rather see me do it on the regular sewing machine? Maybe I'll let you guys decide what it ends up being. Maybe I'll put a poll or something like that. But you can let me know in the comments, even now, what you'd prefer seeing. A long-armed version of it, I know sometimes that's not realistic because not everyone has a long arm, but it's also sometimes fun watching things get made on the long arm. Or would you rather see how it comes together on a domestic machine um, through free motion quilting? We've got our free motion quilting event happening right now. We've done just one project, so you're not too late if you want to brush up on your free motion quilting skills. Just go under events and courses and you'll find it. And yeah. All right. Halfway there, you guys. Oh, super cute, don't you think? Okay, I'm going to do 2 more of these rows. And in the next couple days, when it's all done, I'm going to get it sandwiched up, and I'm going to look to see what you think I should do in terms of quilting. Remember, with a long arm, we could use a mix of the computer and free quilting. So we could do some things like, I like the idea of doing boo or putting some spider webs or, some cool Halloween motifs. So that's sort of my leaning on why I might want to do it on the long arm. Then again, you could also do the same kind of thing if you have an embroidery machine, is once you've got it sandwiched up, just sandwich up a few spots that you want to embroider a quilting design, which are usually just one line designs of a certain motif. I know OESD on their website has tons of Halloween inspired quilting designs that you can use in your embroidery machine. So if you don't have a long arm, but you want that look here and there in between, let's say straight line quilting or just meandering, you could do that on your embroidery machine once it's all sandwiched up. Okay, I hope this was helpful and inspirational. Grab the pattern if you don't already have one, because this is going to be a treat every Halloween going forward from now on, because it's going to be done in time. Yay! Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in a little while.